We've been following more closely than anyone in this community and anyone in this state the 6th congressional district race. The incumbent, Spencer, stabbed us in the Bachus. Spencer Bachus is a coward, in my humble estimation. The definition of a coward being someone who runs away from uncomfortable or dangerous situations. Spencer Bachus will not appear on this radio program, really won't enter into any interview opportunity in which he might be asked questions that are uncomfortable to him or dangerous to his political campaign. Now, it was always and has always been an uphill battle to unseat someone like Spencer Bachus, an organization that makes it its purpose to try to make more primaries competitive is the Campaign for Primary Accountability. With that in mind, we re-welcome to the broadcast Eric O'Keefe to talk about the 6th congressional district race and to announce that they've got some advertisements upcoming, not only on this radio program, but all across the community to try to point out some of the record of Spencer Bachus. Eric, good morning. Thanks for joining us again.
Morning. Glad to be here.
Well, since we've spoken last, I know that you've got some advertisements, television and radio alike, launching, and we'll listen to one of those in just a moment. But I wanted to get your comment or your thoughts, Eric, on something that Spencer Bachus said about your organization. Bachus was asked last week, I think the Birmingham News finally got a hold of the guy. They've been having almost as much trouble as we have. And Bachus said that the Campaign for Primary Accountability PAC is a, quote, handful of rich people who have not done enough research on him to know what they were talking about. Eric, how do you respond to that?
Well, I'd like to be a little richer than I am, but
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I'm surprised that a Republican who claims to believe in free market capitalism and the whole concept of the United States of America, not to interrupt your answer, Eric, but I'm frankly a little bit surprised that Spencer would begrudge anyone trying to make a little money in this country.
Well, yeah, and, I'm not running for office. I'm not in Congress, and I'm not spending the money of your listeners. But Spencer Bachus is. As it happens, by the way, I'm an investor and have been a trader, and I never got to trade options on inside information, which distinguishes me from Representative Bachus. You make a good point on the top two about him avoiding, debates and interviews, not coming on your show. That's a bad sign, and it's symptomatic of him being in office for 20 years and not having a challenger since 1998. The guy's been having free rides even in the general election. The only chance to retire him is in this primary, but we see what has happened to him, and human nature is corruptible. And when you're not accountable, when you can't lose your office, you can tend to drift into thinking you're like royalty. And this treatment of his of not doing interviews and not coming out, the royalty of Europe, you couldn't speak to them unless they spoke first, and that's how Bachus is acting.
Well, and he seems to believe, and I hope he's not right. I mean, I've staked my ground. I'm an ABB guy, anybody but Bachus, but I do believe he's been Washingtonized. I think he's kind of staked his territory out and spending a lot of money on campaign advertisements, spending a lot of money on radio and television, and not really speaking to the people about what he plans to do for them or his record of what he has or, in this case, has not done for them.
Right, and here I wanted to comment on his advertising. He's advertising against President Obama. Now, let's look back a little bit in history as to how we came to have a Congress headed by Pelosi and Reid and then a President Obama. What happened was that the voters of this country never wanted big deficits. They never wanted big spending. They put in Republicans in the year 2000. For the first time since 1954, it was a Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican White House. They expected some fiscal responsibility. They did not get it. And they became progressively disgusted with the spending, the deficits, the earmarking that was going on, and Spencer Bachus was in the middle of it. So they threw out the Republican leadership. The independents did it. They gave up. They gave us Pelosi and Reid, and then Obama. Obama is a product of the profligacy of people like Bachus. So for him to run against the problem he caused is really preposterous.
Well, and your participation in this is strictly due to the fact that the incumbents not only in this 6th congressional district race, but the incumbents all across America, they seem to have a stranglehold on these races, and that leads them not to be as consistently representative. That's the reason you're here, right?
Right. This is a core problem in our Congress. This is a national problem. And I used to promote term limits to take care of this, but the Supreme Court said we in the states couldn't limit congressional terms, so we're doing this. This is the fundamental problem that we have with Congress. It's one-party seats, entrenched members, and they become unrepresentative. It can only be cured in primaries. By the way, the National Journal, a prominent publication in the Beltway, published an article just yesterday quoting me, and they were quoting me from your show, Matt. That's where they got the lines. And they quoted me saying what I'll say again, this is the most important congressional primary in the country. Spencer Bachus heads a powerful committee, financial services. He dealt in insider trading based on his information from that committee during the 08-09 bust. And Obama was elected largely because of Republican bungling in supporting the bank bailouts in the fall of 08. So he was part of the problem. He profited personally. And now he's trying to blame the consequences of his own failures on the president. But back to these numbers, only 4 incumbents out of 396 who ran lost primaries in 2010. And those were kind of, that's typical, and that's less than 1%. It's just not good enough. We need to change that.
Well, and he's countering one of his advertisements makes the point to say that he hasn't accepted a pay raise since 2002, and that he voluntarily returns part of his congressional pay should give the voters of the 6th congressional district a reason to go to the polls and vote for him again. But as you well know, Eric, while he was, quote-unquote, voluntarily returning his pay, he was also using information that he received as a member of Congress to financially benefit on the stock market.
That's right. Peter Schweitzer wrote a good book, Throw Them All Out, and he featured the insider trading of Spencer Bachus, which he picked up both from personal financial disclosure forms, from Treasury Secretary Paulson's book, from press interviews. He was getting private briefings, including over the weekend and in evenings. He knew which companies were in trouble, and he was trading options during that volatile market in 08 and 09, making money. So great, he doesn't need his raise because he traded on inside information based on his sensitive position in the government. Great, that's that's big of him, isn't it?
Eric O'Keefe, our guest with the Campaign for Primary Accountability. So you're launching television advertisements as well as radio advertisements starting today, if my understanding is correct. And what is your give us a preview of the central message of these ads?
It's that Spencer Bachus has been in too long. He's self-dealing. He's participated in the trillion-dollar deficits and the bank bailouts, and his campaign funding comes from Wall Street, the very people he bailed out.
Eric, we wish you the best of luck in your endeavors, and we'll I know you know the ad. We'll play one of the radio ads for the listening audience for their edification in a few moments. But best of luck getting the message out. I'm trying to do the same thing, and it really is just bad representation that we're getting in the 6th congressional district, and a product of a lot of money being funneled to these incumbents. And I'll tell you, Eric, my conversations with you, your organization, I have long stood against term limits. I've always been of the ideological belief that folks can make their own determination, they can go to the polls, and they can vote their conscience, and that we in the voting booth have the ability to limit their terms. But with the amount of money that we're talking about and the inability of a challenger to take on an incumbent in a race like this, I'm beginning to believe that maybe we need to look into something like that.
Well, you know what? We have to go through Congress, so we can't get it today. So actually, your approach is the only one we have now, and it can work. And one of the things your listeners, I know they've heard it from you, the primaries have more leverage, a lower turnout, their vote is more important. We all know the electoral votes of Alabama are going to go for the Republican in the fall. We all know a Republican will win in this district in the fall. What we don't know is who the representative will be coming out of that March 13th primary. And I join you in encouraging a big red tide to push Bachus out of that seat.
Well, and I look at you. I know that Spencer wants to characterize you and your organization as outside agitators, et cetera. These are code words that are used in the state of Alabama. But I look at you, Eric, and I look at the Campaign for Primary Accountability as ballast. You